to accumulate, harnessing robotics and process automation for profit and growth. And then the second part of this show, we're going to have another special guest that I will be interviewing, and that will be getting into VAs and hiring a virtual assistant when the time is right for you and your business. And this is another special guest. This is Jonathan Kendall. You may know him formerly with MentorBox, and now he is the CEO of Virtual Worker now. And so he is going to share about that process. Okay, so stay tuned. And some of the things that in our exciting episode, we will delve into the world of robotics, process automation, and its transformative potential for skyrocketing profits. Journey with us as we unravel the history and evolution of robotics and process automation. And to share more with you about that, here is John C. Morley. Welcome to the show, John.
Again, Sheila, it is always a privilege, a pleasure, an honor to be collaborating with you. Once again, thank you for that very warm welcome. And I have another great topic, and we're celebrating because we're now on our 5th week of collaborating with you, and it has been a blast, and we look forward to continuing this. Now, a lot of the topics that we bring you might seem confusing, but they're not when we just look at them from a very, let's say, initial perspective. Let's not try to get too involved with the concept. And today's topic is a real good one. And if you're wondering what that topic is, well, I'm going to share it with you. But before I do that, I'm going to invite you to go to believemeachieve.com. And definitely, ladies and gentlemen, go check out all the great stuff I have there. I know you're definitely going to want to check it out because there's a lot of stuff there. And I would encourage you to click on the masterclass link, and you can use the special code that I have just for KCAA radio. You can go to JCM, all uppercase, 9KCAA. That's capital J, capital C, capital M, 9KCAA to get that special discount off of your ticket. Now, the topic for this week is using robotic process automation to increase profits. I know you might be saying, John, that seems like way out there. Well, it's not, because any business can take advantage of RPI, robotic process automation. The term RPA, ladies and gentlemen, has been around, it's been around for a while. And it actually started with Phil First, when he first used it in 2021, who is the founder and lead analyst of HFS Research. This new technology that started emerging in 2021 continued to develop through the years until about 2018, when it really took off and started to grow as companies were beginning to adopt a digital transformation and an RPA platform mindset. And also, RPA had started to reveal more of its capabilities and how it could help businesses. So again, RPA just stands for robotic process automation. And so let's talk about why RPA, robotic process automation. What is that? It's using robots. It is using technology, okay? And what is RPA in simple? So what is RPA? Is it only robots? Well, robotic process automation is when we're able to use systems, okay, it doesn't have to be a robot, to take a lot of these manual tasks. For example, let's say that you were applying for a job and you were hired, and now they want you to go through this new hire paperwork. And usually there's paperwork for your your form that has to be filled out for your W-2 information. There is information has to be entered for the handbook. There's information that has to be entered for policies and procedures. There's information for different types of equipment that you might be getting loaned and be responsible for if you don't return. So there's lots of different things that could be laptops, could be access control cards, a variety of different company assets. Now, normally this process of doing this, it's gruesome because even though the companies are automated, they have you go online and you fill out the first form, then you fill out the second form, then you fill out the third form, then you fill out the fourth form, then you fill out the fifth form, then you fill out the sixth form, and then there's yet another form, there's a seventh form. So you might be saying to me, John, like, what gives? Well, these companies are having you fill it out, but they are not using RPA or robotic process automation. So, robotic process automation is not just robots. It could be a software bot that's in a program that can carry out specific actions. It could be complex tasks, it could be simple tasks. So, when a company is gathering that information, obviously securely, through an HTTPS secure website. Remember, you should never enter any personal information, that's personal health information or just PI, personal information, on any website that doesn't have the solid locker key, which is with the HTTPS. If you have a question, obviously you can ask someone, but always be vigilant about this before you just go willy-nilly and enter your information, especially if you're on a site like, oh, we can get this for you really cheap, and then you fill everything out, and before you know it, your identity just got hacked. So that's a step that you can use. That's another little bonus I want to share with you. A software bot will allow the system to take the information that you entered, like your name, your phone number, your address, okay, maybe even your social security number, again, all securely, and transport that to the different documents in the system, but asking you to enter it once. Now, you might say to me, John, well, do I just sign one document? Well, a lot of companies are not at that point yet where they have everything all, let's say, put together. So what they'll do is they'll have you fill all the information out, then they'll have you review the documents to make sure they're okay, and you can sign each one, okay? Or you can read each one and then just click sign at the end to sign all of them. That's up to the company how they want to handle that. And there's more elaborate versions of software bots that can simulate or interact with humans, as we know, such as virtual assistants, Alexa from Amazon, Cortana from Microsoft, Siri from Apple. And so RPA, robotic process automation, allows us to handle a variety of tasks, oftentimes manual and repetitive. And sometimes when there's so many repetitive manual tasks, very easy to forget something. And so this is a way of making sure the information is captured correctly the first time, and then it's automatically processed for the different forms, and those are stored digitally. This is great for high volume tasks. Again, it mitigates errors because we get the information only once, and therefore we don't run the risk of someone entering the information wrong, and then now we have that potential that we could have skewed data, and nobody wants skewed data, right? So that can be a big problem. As I talked to you about multiple system tasks, access to different applications such as web apps, third-party software, payroll software, all this can be integrated in. And back around, I think it was 2021, the revenue spend for RPA was just slightly below $2 billion, $1.89 billion. Now, you might be asking me, what is the estimated, because we only know the estimated spend for 2023 for RPA. And it's going to be higher. I can tell you that right now. And this is going to come right from a leader in the source, and you guys know who the source is, Gartner. Gartner says that worldwide RPA software spending was to reach $2.9 billion in 2022, which it did. If we look at the numbers here from Gartner, end user spending was at $2,389 in 2021. The growth was 30.9% from the last time. In 2022, it was $2,854 end user spending, and the growth was 19.5%. And in 2023, $3,352, and the growth was 17.5%. So this tells us that RPA is definitely on the rise. And Gartner keeps saying that it is going to continue to be a multi-billion-dollar industry. Why? Because RPA is going to do a couple things. But first, before we can get into that, let's ask the question, why RPA? Why? Well, one reason is costs, right? That could be, anything from supply costs to even labor costs. And there could be other things too, right? There could be, we talked about waste costs, we talked about, being more efficient. We talked about, having the same amount of labor to produce something or very little labor, okay? And so I feel that a lot of people want to run to the drawing board and start creating RPA. And although I admire you, I want to tell you that that is the number one reason that companies go out of business, because they spend so much money on RPA and they don't understand the business challenge. So there are a couple reasons why companies go out of business when implementing RPA. The first one is there's no technical clarity. And the example I'm going to give is McDonald's. I'm just making this up, is looking to, I don't know, let's say here in New Jersey, in the brand new $10 billion airport, is looking to put a new kitchen all the way, let's say, by all the gates. But what happens when people want to buy food at, let's say, the area just after security and just before security? They're out of luck, aren't they? Well, they could open 2 more McDonald's stores. Now, I'm not a big fast food person, but I'm using this because I know a lot of people eat fast food and they can relate to this concept. So they have the one McDonald's store, let's say, open. They spend a lot of money on it. And so they know that there's time, there's effort, there's money, there's engineering that has to all go into getting that one place to be efficient, and maybe even use RPA technology and robots to manage how the food is getting disseminated. I didn't say how the orders are coming in, because we don't want to use RPA when there's a human element. I think that's the big mistake that a lot of companies are using. McDonald's tried this, other places tried this. They said, well, gee, let's let the computer take the order. Now, there's a time and place for that. But when you're going there, you want to have that human interaction. I don't want to go to a screen and place my order. I want to talk with someone. I want to interact with them, right? So they can understand my order and make sure that it gets entered properly and that I get the appropriate, correct food. So we've got these 2 other little, call them satellite McDonald's, that we want to open up in the mall. One of them's just before security, one of them's just after security. Now, there's about, I'm going to say, a 10-minute walk between each one. So if somebody wanted to walk from the first one to the next one, be 10, all the way to the next one, almost 20, 25 minutes. Not to mention, you have to get the security, and then 10 minutes, and then another 10 minutes, so that could be an easily 45 minutes. So one of the things is to implement these other 2, but in order to do this, you probably say, well, gee, we'll just throw in, 2 extra McDonald's, but that would be very costly. So what we could do is do some case studies to see, how have other people done it, if anybody else has done it, or what are the costs to implement RPA in these other places, or to just implement a standard let's say, kitchen in these others. That's going to be very expensive. Not to mention more permits. If you're using non-robotic workforce, you're going to need labor to be able to cook the food, right? And of course, there's other fees, like different types of regulations from other health permits and things that can get more stringent as we go on the line. So that's not a great way. But a good thing would be, okay, I got an idea. We've got this great efficient kitchen that's in the west wing, all the way out by all the gates. We want to bring food to the east wing and to the north wing very easily. So how do we do that? Well, we're not going to have people run around all day long. That would be a waste of time and money and resources. So we're going to put in a conveyor belt that's going to go from the main kitchen to the kitchen just after security to the, not the kitchen, the McDonald's satellite to the other one on the other side of, let's say, the checkpoint for security. And that sounds great, and it sounds really easy, so great, we'll just put a conveyor in. Well, wait a minute. There's more to it than that. When we put it in, are we going to put the conveyor up, down? Well, to make it easy and based on the volume we have, we're going to keep it straight, and we're just going to put little separators and just drop the bags right between those separators very easily and quickly, or the robot arm could do that, and then it'll get moved to the next stop. Now, anyone, let's say, that is going into perhaps the blue chute. Well, the blue chute could actually go all the way to the front, all right? And let's say the yellow chute might go to the middle, and the green just goes to a conveyor that just delivers the food right outside here next to where they place the order. All right, so the question becomes is, they put the order in at any one of these 3 spots by usually a person. That person has to tell them, basically the system knows where they're currently standing, and that's where the food is going to be ready. So now what happens is the system puts in the information. It even puts an estimated delivery time based on the current, let's say, threshold and bottleneck of production that's currently happening, cooking time and estimated delivery time, etc. So that gets stamped on there. And the average delivery time, let's say, is approximately 8.5 minutes to 9 minutes. So now, when you put it in a chute, let's say you put it into, the one chute, yellow it goes to the middle, and the blue one goes all the way to the end. So when you put it in there, we have it that it goes right here. Now, it looks to us like we could just do two conveyor belts. Well, that's very, very simple, very easy, but it's also costly. So maybe what we're going to do is we're going to set this aside so that the orders, okay, if they're on this one side and they're deemed to be routed to, let's say, the yellow or the other spot, the system's going to scan them. So when it gets to a certain point, it's automatically going to have those orders drop down a little chute and go right into another little conveyor. I don't mean drop. I mean literally a little let's say a little arm is going to move so that the like a train track, the bags can then suddenly just divert that way for that one and then go the next way for the next one. So very easy, very simple. And that is knowing about technical clarity. Sometimes tasks are too complicated as they are in their current sense. So we need to chunk them or break them down. Do you know why we have the phone number at 10 digits? It's not because people want a 10-digit phone number. It's because the average memory of most people is plus or minus the 7 digits. That's why we have 10 digits. Pretty easy for people to remember. How do people remember the credit cards? They chunk the digits and they remember them. There's lots of other ways, but I just thought I would share that with you. The other reason RPA fails is process keeps changing. Like they haven't clearly identified the correct process to do business that's profitable. So if we decided that, hey, we're going to send things over here, but now we notice, wait a minute, we're sending drinks, but wait a minute, it's costing us too much time, too much money to get those drinks and labor. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in different Coca-Cola or Pepsi fountains at the other two McDonald's substations, as well as an ice cream station where they can just get the soft cone, because we don't want to be sending soft cones. And we also don't want to risk the fact that if the drink topples over, it could be a mess. So we're going to just mitigate that by spending some extra money and putting in an ice cream soft serve at all of the stations, not just the one at the main. And also we're going to go ahead and put in a, let's say, a spot where people can go get their drinks and get the refills. Pretty easy. Nice thing is that they could take their cup and they could refill at any one of the McDonald's substations, so if they're rebilling. So that's a great thing. No commitment from the owners or the team. That's a problem. You can't just say, hey, let's just do this, but not be on board with technology and not say, hey, I'm out. If you're out, then you never should be in the first place. Designing for developers is the quickest way to failure in going out of business. If you design because you want what the developer wants or what you want if you're a developer, you got to design what the end user wants or what the client wants, right? The end users. If you don't do that, then you're going to have frustrated clients or customers, and they're not going to buy from you. And guess what? McDonald's is going to start losing business, and they may have to close those other two stations down because they're not profitable. All right, poor strategies and tools. We've been told that if we do it this way and that way, but we haven't properly tested. We haven't done some benchmarks before we've decided how it's going to work. We haven't tested. Well, is it better to route things this way? Or is it better to use an arm? Or is it better to just put in two chutes? I mean, what's the cost difference? We have to look at all these things, but we have to have technical specifications that will be in alignment with our challenge. So we have to really storyboard how we're going to handle this, okay? I think that's really important. So I want to share with you guys to go out to believemeachieve.com, because we recently interviewed a restaurant that just does takeout and has robots that make pizza. Now, that's robotic process automation. They're not actually robots that are there, but we say robots, but they're systems. So what happens is they still make the dough by hand, and they still let it proof for so many hours or time frame. And once that happens, then they take the dough from the mixer, and then they put it to another machine, and then they manually flatten it out. Then they put the dough into another machine, this line, and the line scans it with the camera for the X and Y axis. So now they know where the pizza is. And now the next unit actually puts, let's say, the sauce, the toppings, etc. even cuts the let's say the pepperoni if it's live there and they're making a pepperoni pizza. And generally, one thing I like that this restaurant did is they kept it simple. They kept the price low and they just made it their premise to make affordable, reliable, consistent pizzas and keeping a very small menu of maybe less than 10 pizzas that were probably $10 to $15 and they could do them consistently. See, that's the whole thing. Learning how to do it consistently and then scale. Then what happens is after it comes out of the next step, they don't go right into the oven. They actually pick up the pizza and they inspect it, another quality assurance, and then put in the oven. Takes a few extra seconds, but hey, why waste a pizza if something doesn't go right? You might say, John, how much time does it take? Well, it takes about 10 minutes to set up every day and 20 minutes to break down because there is a breakdown process. So what's involved? What's the cost of RPA? Are you paying for it up front? Are you leasing it? Are you doing RAS, robots as a service, or RPA, SaaS, robotic process automation as a service, or RPAAS, or RPAS. So RPAAS, robotic process automation as a service, or RBRRB or RPAAS, robotic as a service. And so that handles things like your break fixes, that handles your free support. So you have to decide, are you doing something like that, or how are you operating, and how are you going to manage this? Do you even know what's involved? Do you know that when you start something? So our one client had worked a long time to figure out how do they want to do this, and they decided that it was very hard during COVID time to get people. So they decided to figure out how do we make pizzas with needing less labor, and they figured it out. They just basically need a chef to make the dough, and they might need somebody at the register to maybe take the orders or the phone. And that same chef can also double up as the person that's taking the pizza from once it's been, let's say, pre-made, and then checking it and then putting it to the oven. Pretty cool, right? But this is something, so you have to first know how to make pizza. So these people were already in the pizza industry, and they decided that they wanted to scale and make a high-quality pizza at an affordable price with a lower amount of waste, but be consistent on the amount of waste every single time. That is amazing. So we shot a few reels. You can check that out at believemeachieve.com. Check out Genuine Food Reviews. One of our titles was, Where Did Pizza HQ Get Its Name? And you got to listen to the story. So there's short little reels. Also, I believe either today or we might have already released it, is we'll be releasing the video of about a 25-minute interview of us interviewing, Orville Media interviewing the one of the store, restaurant, I should say, owners. And they're already working on setting up another facility somewhere else in New Jersey. So once you've got something that works, then you can scale it. But you have to first know how to do it manually, okay? And you have to make sure it's working like a recipe, right? And then once you have that recipe, then you can move on and say, well, gee, how do we automate that process? Where do we go from here to get that process automated? Does that make sense? All right. The important thing about robotic process automation is you've got to understand, first of all, how it's going to work. How do the machines go together? How do they get set up in the morning? How do they get clean? Because remember, when you're using robotic process automation and you're using robots or robotic systems and you're in the food industry, you've got to make sure that that stuff is spick and span, like clean, because you're working with food and you've got safety issues to deal with. You've got to make sure that it gets broken down, it gets cleaned. And these are things that we don't think about when we visit a restaurant. But I know because I've been in the industry for a long time. I worked when I was in high school at some of the food places. And then I moved up the ladder to work for some fancier restaurants. Then I worked into, let's say, more the banquet industry. And after I did that for a while, then I became black tie, which is what they call it, with tuxedo, and then I moved into becoming a banquet captain. And I gotta tell you, there's a lot of work that goes in. If you're in a restaurant or in a banquet place, especially in a restaurant, you gotta clean everything down. Like those soda fountains, you've got to take them apart every night or every day or two. You've got to make sure you do these things, or this can be a huge, huge problem. So I would invite you to definitely check out the new reels, and you can find those really easily, ladies and gentlemen. Just go to Believe, Believe Me Achieve .com, and when you go to that link tree, You're going to scroll down one, two, three. The fourth one, Genuine Food Reviews channel. You'll see there's only a few things up there right now, and then you'll see playlists, and you'll see YouTube Shorts. Go ahead and click on that. Once you click on that, you will be able to see the shorts. You'll also be able to see under reviews, you'll see our latest video for Pizza HQ and the interview. So there's a lot that goes into this, ladies and gentlemen, and if somebody tells you that you're just going to do RPA in 24 hours, you're not. It takes time. You got to figure out how do you solve the problem manually. And then once you figure out how to solve it manually, then you got to figure out how do you automate? What do you automate? What should you not automate? We talked about why businesses fail, and it's no surprise. It's because of, again, we said no technical clarity, complex mind problems are not broken down into smaller tasks. I mean, that is a huge one. The process keeps changing. It means that management or the team doesn't know how to do it. So if you don't know how to make a pizza, well, first figure out how to make a pizza right. Then we can figure out how to have machines make the pizza. Because even though the formula might be a little different in the machines because how it gets applied or the process, still got to know how to make it by hand. Then you got to do some R&D and figure out how do you make the formula work in machines, because sometimes it can be slightly different. And you have to make sure that you and the owners and the stakeholders, I'm going to say, are invested. If they're not, you're just going to dump money down and people are going to be very upset and you're going to be out of business. Make sure you're able to scale. That's very important. Think about that. Design for your end user, for your clients. Don't design for things that you want to see, even though it looks pretty and it looks nice. It's really important. So Orbital Media, my ask for today is if you have a business in New Jersey, we'll be happy to travel to you. We do all types of social media, but we do reels, and we also can do your story. So if you're looking for that, you can reach out by going to orbitalmediahub.com, clicking on the Contact Us button. Also, we have an offer that I want to share with you. How would you like a professional team to create social media, high-quality posts every day for 5 days on one social media channel? It's just $1.99 plus tax. Now, of course, that's not what it normally costs, but we want you to try it and see if you like it. Normally, something like that's about $100 and some, and then we have plans that go up depending on whether you want to do 7 posts a day. But I'll tell you something. None of my content, I think alone our company posts 7 pieces of content a day on 7 media channels. None of our content gets blocked. Do you know why? We don't sell. We educate. So my ask is, if you want to tell a story and you have a business, preferably a restaurant, let our team come out to your facility. Let us do some reels. Let us get a tour of how you do things. And if there's something you don't want to share with the public, we're perfectly fine about that. We'll make sure that that does not get in the video and that doesn't get shared. Just like with our current client, we asked up front, what do you not want us to talk about? And they were telling us things. I said, well, we probably shouldn't mention that on camera. That's something we shouldn't be sharing. And so our goal is to make sure we get you business, but we get you noticed. And I think when you're as passionate as myself and my team, because we're virtuous, passionate creators, there's a lot of media companies out there. But what makes us different is we know what it's like to be a small business. We know what it's like to spend money. We know what it's like when you spend and you don't get an ROI. So we want to make sure that we tell an honest, wholesome story to get people to engage and interact with you, your brand, and hopefully some large potentials. Hey guys, I am John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur, and I don't want to scare you from looking into RPA, whether that's software for your business or whether that is using robotic process automation to increase profits. It can be done, but I don't want you to think that you can do it overnight. Well, Sheila, this has been an amazing show that I've enjoyed talking about. Definitely check out BelieveMeAchieve.com for all my amazing asks, and definitely reach out to me at BelieveMeAchieve.com or visit OrbitalMediaHub.com. Tell us you'd like us to do a video for you or start doing social media for you. We'd be happy to help you. And I can't wait to hear, Sheila, how you're going to be adding great value, because you do an amazing job of taking a great topic that I put together, and then you collaborate right on top with it, and you just make it so valuable and viable for our community. So again, it is a privilege. It is a pleasure to be with you guys. And thank you so much, Sheila. Over to you.
Welcome to the Sheila Mack Show, reality at its finest. Here we have real people sharing real stories and actionable steps to help you reinvent, rebuild, and reboot your business and personal life on your terms. I'm your host, Sheila Mack, and today we have special guest Jonathan Kendall. He is the co founder of Virtual Worker Now. Welcome to the show, Jonathan.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yes, and I'd like to, if you could share a little bit more about what Virtual Worker Now is and a little bit more about yourself, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, thanks for that. So my background originally is in copywriting, which led to digital marketing. I was kind of a digital nomad for a while. I lived all around the world and was working from my laptop, and then I eventually became an entrepreneur working in digital education space and did a lot of business coaching and masterminds for a company called MentorBox. I was ended up becoming one of the owners of that company and also was a CEO. And then throughout that process, we needed a lot of video editors, a lot of customer support, a lot of assistance, for the team as we were growing. And so my now business partner, he's Canadian but also Egyptian, and he said, "Oh, I can find you video editors." And he had a big social media following in Egypt, and he said, "We can probably find someone that's just as good and probably more cost effective for your company." And so we started hiring video editors, customer support agents, virtual assistants, through him. And eventually, I kept on giving him so many referrals that he said, "Why don't you come on as my partner? Because this is getting kind of crazy. We're growing too fast." And that was about 4.5 years ago, and we're at a little over 400 employees now. And we've kind of hit a sweet spot in the market. And basically, what we do is we provide virtual assistants, but virtual assistants is such a catch-all term. So we have different departments. So we do video editing, graphic design, copywriting, executive assistants for busy CEOs and executives. We do cold calling, like setters for real estate companies and that sort of thing. So we have different departments, and basically we find really highly talented people that just live abroad and can help you with your company.
Oh, that's wonderful. And that's always something that I need for sure. So we'll have to talk after the show about that. So,
Yeah.
and then I'd like to ask you to share about a time in your business and or personal life where you experienced a tough situation and how you got back on track.
Yeah. So I had a couple big things happen all at the same time about a year and a half ago. It was really interesting. So I was actually working for the parent company of MentorBox, and we raised a bunch of money and we bought a bunch of companies, and I added that skill set, which was incredible. The one company that I was a part of ended up becoming just one of 10 companies that the parent company owned. And it was a great opportunity because I learned how to raise a lot of money and manage an even bigger team and be a more of an executive role. But in the negotiation process of my contract, for the next year, that's what really sparked me to become my own entrepreneur, not just a partner in the business, because we couldn't come to an agreement. And I said, "Okay, I think I'm worth this." And they said, "Not so much." And I said, "Okay, well, I'm going to do it on my own." And so I really went, just jumped off the cliff, and I said, "Okay, so I have these two businesses, one that raises money and one virtual worker now." And we had with Virtual Worker Now this one client that was at the time like 70% of our business. So they had over 100 people with us. So we basically were their entire company. We were like, they had executives and us, and we were their main payroll. And then for my other company, things were going well, but then the economy crashed, and it was very difficult to raise money. All of a sudden, there was not all this frothy money in the market, and at the same time, I had I'll keep it private, but a problem with the business partner. Something happened with there, and so I shut down one of them, and simultaneously that company that had 100 people with us went out of business
Oh,
because they had a really bad. It was an e-commerce basically conglomerate, and they had a really bad Christmas season. And one bad Christmas season, and they forecasted they need to raise some money to kind of keep going, and they couldn't go. So I shut down the one company, and then the other company that was like going to be my saving grace lost 100 of our staff, like 70% of our staff, like in one swoop. And so it was very very difficult, and I made a change in my mindset. It's so
Mm,
funny that this always happens, right? It's like your mindset is the first thing that changes. And I had this idea that I was going to scale these companies and sell them, right?
mm-hmm.
And maybe I still will do that, but I shifted to this idea of an infinite game, right? Like the goal, Alex Hormozy says, the goal of business is to stay in business. And I think that if you deconstruct a lot of the wealthiest, families or wealthy people, they kind of stick to one thing for a really, really long time, and they become such experts and so well networked in that industry or in that position that over time it's like, wow, this is amazing. Like, when I travel the world, I think of some of these companies that I see everywhere. I think, wow, like I can't believe they're everywhere. And then you look back and it's like founded in 1875. You're like, okay, well, they had quite a long time to get there, and this company is like 4 years old. It's like, hey, we're going to be fine. And so I switched my mindset to infinite game. And we started saying yes to basically everything, which was, we kind of needed revenue right away. And so we said, hey, what other products can we offer? What other services can we offer? And in hindsight, we've actually kind of pulled back. And I don't think that strategically is the best decision for companies just to like add products and add services. But the Pareto principle is strong, the 80-20 rule. And so we had the 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 clients that we had, they were willing to expand with us if we could offer different things. And we said, hey, we'll just expand with them. And I'm really proud of this. We were able to keep 70 of the 100 people because we didn't have to fire them. We found them other clients within the first couple months, and
Nice.
we kept them on payroll
Mm,
until we found someone. So we didn't even have revenue for them, but we just kept them on payroll because we were dedicated to them. And so it's it was quite a journey. But I guess a summary of is okay. Something bad happens. Like this too shall pass. It's
yeah.
gonna be okay. Think long term, and how else can I serve the people that are still with me, and kind of get through to the next step. And then since then, like we've just been like a rocket ship, growing, 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 growing. But I really think that was end up being like a good thing in the company, to be honest.
Wow. That is quite a situation, and thank you so much. It was beautiful that you were able to keep those people on as well, because that's a tough thing to do. Whenever you are running a business, you're paying for people's livelihoods. So that is a big thing, and something that always was hard for me. I think that's why I really like the opportunity to have some virtual help versus complete payroll where it's all my responsibility as an entrepreneur, or if you're just starting out or building and growing, then you can adjust as needed over time and grow, but you're not the one solely responsible for that person. And so that takes a lot of pressure off, and you can just play the game of whatever you do best instead of worrying about all that other stuff that, like, for me, there's only so much you can do, and there's things that I don't do very well. And I am really happy to hand over my books to the CPA every year. I'm like, here, take the numbers, have fun. It's not my thing. And yes, I could do it, but it would take me 20 times longer than it takes her. So
Yeah.
that is definitely a situation that makes it easier. So what would you advise people right now in this interesting time with the inflation and everything happening as we're trying to stay in business, grow our businesses? What would you advise for getting started with hiring virtual help?
Yeah, I think it depends on whether or not your problem is an operational problem where maybe your customers are not very happy because you're not able to keep up with your promises. And so being able to distinguish between like, hey, I'm a little overwhelmed, like marketing's going well, sales is going good, but I'm kind of all over the place, then
Hmm.
more of a traditional operations VA, I think will change your life. If your problem is I need more revenue now, then we call them BDRs, like business development relationship specialists. And so they're going to cold call, they're going to be on LinkedIn, they're going to be doing DMing on Facebook and Instagram, and their KPI is more sales. And especially if you're, coach or high ticket product or B2B, having someone that they're every single day they're giving you a report. This is how many people I reached out to. This is how many conversations I had. This is how many people are interested. This is how many people are scheduled on your calendar. whether you're in financial services or real estate, or it doesn't really matter what industry you're in. If you have someone that no matter what behind the scenes is doing that work, that like it doesn't mean you should be doing it, but someone should be doing it at your company. It should be doing, especially if you're not doing paid marketing on Meta or YouTube or Google Ads. Like, where are those leads coming from? And I think that a setter VA is a really powerful thing, and we're seeing a lot of traction with a lot of our clients where they think, oh man, what am I going to do? And they come in thinking that they need someone to help them with their calendar, and we say, no, 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 you need leads. Like,
Yeah.
let's get you some leads. Let's get you some sales. And then once we win that relationship, now they have more revenue. Then they might want to do organic social media, or then they might want to add some more customer support, or then they might want to do some more fancy video editing for their podcast. Or it depends on where they're at. We try to be consultative, honestly. Like, me and my business partners still take every call for all of our partners, and we've seen so many things in so many different industries that we're 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 not going to say, like, honestly, we don't even trust the client to know exactly what they need. So we say, okay, let's go through your business, and we basically do like a quick consulting call, like, where's the real problem? And then we say, okay, well, let's find someone that can help you solve that problem. And
Mm.
now, we're a very cost effective strategy. So we're not like some high ticket consultant that you're going to pay us a lot of money. But on that one call, we can at least tell you who you think you should approach. So unfortunately, the right answer is it depends on their company. But I think, especially right now, if you can get someone that is driving, that's closer to the money,
Mm.
then that can be really beneficial. And we have a lot of people that do that for a lot of our clients.
Oh, yes. Perspective is everything. I remember having gift stores, having five gift stores for 17 years, and I would pay people, friends, people that didn't know me that well. I would pay them like secret shoppers before there was secret shoppers. I was like, what do you see? What am I missing? Because I'm looking at my business like so close to me, I can't see what other people are seeing anymore. And so that is an incredible advantage to just have that call and figure out what you're missing. Now, what would you say for people that are listening in that are writing a book
Oh yeah.
or trying to produce a book or some type of a product like a book or maybe a short course? What stood out and helped you choose the books you chose?
Yeah. So I have very strong opinions about how to write a book. So let me walk you through kind of how,
I love
because uh, okay. So the first thing is that it has to say something either unique or in a unique way,
it. Hmm.
or in a unique way for that audience, right? So maybe the book about sales calls. Like, okay, there's a lot of books about sales calls, but maybe your thing is about how you should do social selling instead of hard selling, like the opposite of what Greg Cardone says, right? And you say, okay, well, that's kind of an interesting idea. And they say, well, we're doing social selling for like moms that are real estate agents. Like, okay, now you're really the only one. And
Hmm.
now this doesn't mean that you can't write a book on philosophy or some big idea, but you better have a big idea to be able to compete at the Nobel Prize level or you better be such a good writer like Mark Manson, like The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Like, that's not a interesting idea. He just is a world class writer, and he has such a unique voice that it didn't really matter what topic it was
Yeah.
about. Like, it was going to be good because he's such a good writer. And so either you're a world class writer or you have a unique big idea that matters to a
Mm.
specific audience. So start there. It's like, in one sentence, what's the thesis of this, right? Like, what am I actually saying? And then from there you say, okay, like, why does this matter? Okay, that's usually like the introduction. It's like, why, it's almost like a sales letter to like
Mhm.
get them to actually buy, to
Right.
continue reading. The introduction is always like a sales letter. No, this is why you should continue reading. um, and then I like to divide it into like basically three parts, and the first chapter is always like the entire book but in one chapter. That's the way
Mm.
I like it, because a
Nice.
lot of people are only going to read the first chapter. But if they
Mhm.
read the first chapter and it's so packed with like the whole idea, is they're still gonna be happy, and they're gonna talk about the book, and they're gonna get a lot of value from it. And then the first part, you're basically arguing for the concept. Okay,
Mhm.
so the big idea that you introduced in chapter one, for the first part, you're basically just like if you're in debate or like giving like an academic paper, but you do it through storytelling. So
Mhm.
chapter two, three, four, five, it's a nuanced argument for why what you said in chapter one is correct, and you come at it from slightly different angles, and you tell stories always in the beginning. So you always start with a story in the beginning of a chapter, in my
Mhm.
opinion, whether it's personal story or something from history or whatever, just kind of tell the story, and then you give the punchline of the story, which proves this is the lesson. And
Right.
then at the end of it, you give a takeaway. And so now that you understand the lesson, this is what you should do. These are the actionable steps, right? So
Yes.
every single chapter should kind of end that way. Then the second version is I like to basically give like a more advanced version of it. And
Mhm.
then at the end of the book, I try to get really tactical.
Yeah.
And so you'll notice this with a lot of health books. This is
Mhm.
honestly the best way to think about it. The best way to deconstruct a book is go to like the top 10 like health books, because that's hard to write in a way that isn't boring.
Right.
And so, because it's like scientific studies and, all kinds of, weird chemistry. So you'll notice that they won't give you the actual actionable, like do this, do this, do this, do
Mhm.
this, until like the very, very, very end of the book.
Uh-huh.
Um, and the reason why they do that partially is so that you'll read to the end. But more importantly, is that they're basically arguing up to the end, because the recipe is probably 1 page long. Like
Yes.
the recipe of the obstacle is the way is like 1 page long. It's like, okay, so things are going to happen to you. Some are going to be good, some are going to be bad. Don't get too high, don't get too low. And then whenever bad things happen, whatever you learn is probably going to be the best thing that ever happened to you. So don't be afraid of failure. Like there you go, there's the book.
Yes.
And honestly, but the whole, like the first 300 pages is just to get you to like really buy into it, so that when they give you the recipe at the end, you're convinced, and
Mm.
it's not just kind of thrown away and forgotten. So that's how, I don't know, that was maybe too detailed, but that's how I
Oh,
approach
I that was incredible. Whoever's writing the book, I'm
it.
actually working on a real estate book now. So yes, that was very helpful. And whoever is an author listening in, that was an incredible takeaway. Now, how would someone apply working with a virtual assistant if they are a business owner that's also trying their best to get this book out?
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. So we have a lot of clients that are authors. We have tons of clients that are authors. And honestly, it depends on where they are in the process. So if you are in the book writing stage,
Mhm.
then you can get a copywriting VA to do a lot of the drafts for you, where you can dictate, you can make decisions, but they're going to be basically be your research assistant. You can say something like, okay, chapter three is going to be about, why this is what's happening in the market, and why therefore, you should do this and this and this. And then you can tell them, find 5 examples from history that prove this point, find 5 things that's happened in the last year in the news that proves this point, and
Mhm.
find 5 academic studies that are interesting and prove this point. Okay, so then they say, okay, great. So then they give you, 15 basically stories and interesting anecdotes that'll spice up the writing. And then you say, okay, and you always, 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 always tell them to like make them in order. This
Mhm.
is this is one thing. Like you don't let them just be like, here's a bunch of stuff on
Right.
the wall. Like make them make a decision. Like if you were in charge, what would be the story? Well, that's
Mhm.
number one would be this one. Number two would be this one. Number three, I think you might disagree with them, and you say, actually, I like number four because of this reason. But nonetheless, you have to help. You have to encourage them to make decisions. In fact, demand them to make decisions so that you're not have to read everything.
Right.
Then from there, now you can say write a draft, right? Like literally, you can. So you could have your research assistant be a copywriter, and especially with ChatGPT and like different things, you can like kind of get the first draft moved along really really fast.
Mhm.
Um, and then after the book is actually done, then you could hire, let's say, a designer for 1 month, right? And you say, okay, I'm going to hire a designer for 1 month, and they're going to make all of the assets. I'm going to rebrand everything on my social media. I
Right.
need the book cover. I need, all of the graphical things that you're kind of struggling with on Canva or
Mhm.
PowerPoint. You just hire a designer for like 1 month to help you there. And then what I would do, if you already have a website, then do a website. But then I would have a VA or someone from us, like we can make your landing page. So
Mhm.
now you have a landing page, and you say, okay, now there's a way to buy the book. And in my experience, like a book is only as good as like as is a lead magnet.
Yes.
And so, don't think of the book as like the end all be all. Like the Pareto principle is so extreme in the book publishing industry. It's like
Mm-hmm.
99% of the sales come from 20 authors like every single year. So,
Mm-hmm.
you thinking that you're going to be like, some Pulitzer Prize winning thing. It's like maybe your third or fourth or fifth or sixth or seventh book, but like, in the beginning, you want to make some money off of it and you want to feel good. And so what I
Right.
would do is I would create a funnel where the book is just the first step, and then
Uh-huh.
maybe they book a call with you, or they go to your coaching, or they go to your mastermind, or a lot of people are going to want more one-on-one help. Or even if you're fiction, like, you could say, for an extra, $99 a month, you get, a weekly call where we discuss the book and the idea and the characters, and so you can always, even in fiction, you can always add an upsell. So I would create a funnel, and then I would make the launch date like at least 3 to 6 months in advance once
Yes.
everything's done, like
Right.
minimum. And then I would hire basically a social media like team, and they would, just push and push and push and get buzz and buzz and buzz and pre-orders, and just do
Mm-hmm.
proper marketing on social media. So that's how I would approach it. I would do like a copywriter for the first, until the book is done, a designer probably for 1 month. Then I would, if I can build my funnel, I would do it myself, but you could hire like a team to do that, and then hire a social media team for like 6 months. And so like this is the type of thing that we do for clients, and this is why having an outsourced like staffing agency rather than a marketing agency is a little bit better, because we do, for example, month to month. Whereas if
Mm-hmm.
you talk to a marketing agency, they're going to make you sign a 6 month contract, and they're going to only do Facebook ads, and they're going to say, well, no, we're not going to help you with your book. Whereas if you have a staffing agency that has copywriting department and a social media department and a web development department, and like if you have all these different departments, then under one roof you can kind of get everything you need and not have to pay for anything that you don't.
Oh, that's nice. As an entrepreneur, I don't know how many hats I've worn.
Yeah.
And you have to, but sometimes it's just so much easier to hire when you can. And something like what you're offering, then you don't have to, you're going to need something this month in one of those millions of areas that you just mentioned.
Yeah,
And it's
exactly.
for sure. So that's really wonderful. That frees up a lot of time, and then you can get things done faster. So very helpful. That's wonderful. Now, how do people get started with something like this? Like I always think if I hire a VA, I'm going to have to tell them what to do, so I have to figure out what to tell them what to do. Do you see where I get caught?
Yeah, yeah, of course. I think instead of thinking about the exact task, is I would approach it as the KPI.
Mhm.
So, listing out like what are the things that I would like to have done without me having to think about it. And if you hire the right VA, like honestly, it sounds crazy, but the difference between like $4 an hour and like $5.50 an hour is, it feels like nothing. It's like, oh well, it's like a buck or two, but in their currency,
Yeah.
it's 50% more. So it's like imagine getting someone. Think about it. Like imagine someone that got paid 60,000 versus someone that got paid 110. Like you would expect a different energy from them, right?
Right.
So if you pay a little bit more, it's not crazy. It's not like you're paying like even minimum wage, in the US. It's still less than minimum wage. But if you pay a little bit more, like a lot of our VAs have literally master's degrees. Like,
Wow.
they speak 3 languages, they have a master's degree, like they're really, really high level. And you can give them something like a KPI. We're like, okay, I never want to worry about my calendar ever.
Hmm.
I want to follow up to, everyone that showed up to the events. Here's like the 7 people in my life that matter. Make sure that like we're doing anniversaries and birthdays and blah blah blah. And also, um, you know, I'd like some help with some like Canva design, for social media or something. Like these are the main things that I would need, right? And if
Hmm.
you give them that, if they're smart and you vet them correctly and you work with an agency that vets them correctly, then they should be able to reverse engineer the how,
Hmm.
right? And now that really is what you're looking for. You're looking for someone that can, now if it's like a hyper particular weird thing where you're like, okay, I need you to do this in Asana, CRM, and I need you to
Yeah.
connect it with, it's like, okay, well, you either got to teach them that or you got to be okay with them like watching tutorials and learning it for a week. And like you
Hmm.
can't expect someone to know everything, obviously. It's just like an
Right.
employee in house. But That's what I recommend. It's like don't think about it in terms of tasks. Think about it in things of like things that I don't want to worry about anymore. Back to first principles. Like you really just need someone that's smart and ambitious, that likes learning, that's bought into your culture. Because whatever they did 2 years ago is probably irrelevant nowadays, anyways. So it's like, uh, so you just want, like Naval Ravikant says this. He says you should hire for integrity, number one, energy, which is basically like ambition, and he calls it intelligence, but just like someone that can learn quickly, so that they can stay on the cutting edge. So
So now, where can people sign up if they're interested in learning more about what you're offering?
yeah, I really like how you put your number, and
Oh,
I'm like,
thank
man,
you.
the next time I do it, I'm gonna put my website on the, yeah. So it's just virtualworkernow.com. It's very on the nose. So that's like literally what we do. We provide virtual workers in all sorts of different fields, and we have a full-time recruit. Like we get about 200 applications a day. So we're vetting. We have a full HR department, full recruiting process. So you usually talk to me or one of my business partners. We're still heavily involved with our partnerships because the lifetime value of those relationships are so high, and because of that consultative aspect of the first call, like we want to make sure that we're providing the. We don't like say, oh, you should get this and this and this and this and sign up, for a year-long contract in advance. Like we do the opposite of that. We're like start with one person,
Nice.
and it's a month to month. Like we just want to build this long relationship and build positive relationships and testimonials and case studies and referrals. And that's our whole model. We don't do any paid marketing, so we've grown to where we are because people refer their friends, and we're really proud of that. Anyways, virtualworkernow.com. You can schedule a call. It'll be probably with me or one of my business partners, and yeah, we can just chat about what you're up to, and if it's a good fit, what we do is we'll do a quick job description of what we think would be good, and then we look at our database of all of the people that are already vetted through our system and have already had interviews, and we say, hey, we think that these 2 or 3 people would be great, and
Hmm.
it's full time, so we're going to send you their resumes. We're going to send you. We usually send you a voice note. Basically, they introduce themselves to you. They say like, "Hi, I'm Jonathan. Sheila, would love to work with you. Would love to have a call." And so you can kind of just hear them introducing themselves. And then if you want to interview any of them, we'll set up an interview. And just like we basically do all the recruiting for free. You don't have to pay anything. And then if you decide I don't like anyone, then we'll find more people. And if you still don't like people, it's fine. No big deal. We tried. And if you like someone, then then we stop.
Well, thank you again, Jonathan. It was great to have you as a guest on the show. And for those tuning in, we'll be back. And if you are just tuning in, I would like to share about Jonathan's special program for virtual workers. And you just need to go to virtualworkernow.com. That's virtualworkernow.com.